Alright, hi guys, it's me. I am here with Will, and it is the video that I have gotten a lot of requests about. It is the Back to the Future video about the timelines and my fan theory about the video. About Back to the Future. Just a little backstory about how we even came up with this. Me and Will, oh my god, my forehead is shiny. Okay, but how we even came up with this video. It's gonna be a long video. It's probably be like what, 45 minutes.
Oh, I'm not even gonna count.
Oh my god, we're not even gonna
count right now.
It took us. We started watching the Back to the Future movies at like 2, and with breaks and trips and stuff like that, it is now 10:33 a.m. We just finished Back to the Future Part 3. Well, p.m. Thank you. We just finished Back to the Future Part 3. We have
3 pages.
3 pages of notes. Hold on. We have 3 pages of notes and diagrams and timeline cues of all 3 movies. Okay, so what brought this on is we was watching Back to the Future Part 1. We was just quoting the movie, so we just decided, hey, let's chill and just watch Back to the Future 1. So with Back to the Future 1, Will... At the end, what did you ask again at the end?
I basically asked, did he just, like, from all the actions in the past, did that essentially, like, create a new timeline?
Yes, he asked did it create a new timeline. So, me, being the nerd I am, I came in my kitchen, and oh my god, I can't do it. But I came in my kitchen, and can you see it up there?
Let me see, where's the other light?
You don't need the other light. But can you see it? Like, yeah. So I came in my kitchen, and I wrote that timeline out. I wrote that timeline out simply off of Back to the... Oh my gosh, I'm moving it. But I wrote that timeline out simply off of Back to the Future 1. And my knowledge of the Back to the Future of 2 and 3.
Yep.
So with him saying that, it made me think, and I came up with a fan theory that the DeLorean is not the same DeLorean. The DeLorean that was sent from the original 1985 that Doc originally made, that Doc originally made, is not the same DeLorean that came back from 1955, and it's no longer the same DeLorean. So we're gonna get into that. That's my fan theory, is that the DeLorean changed. And I feel that the DeLorean changed due to time skews that has happened in the movie. So let's go ahead and get on with the timelines and their skews.
Let's go.
So we were going to start with Back to the Future Part 1. Okay. All right. So you have the original timeline. Okay. So we're not going to talk about my crude drawing. Who was kind of just sketching stuff along. So this is definitely, you have to ignore my daughter's picture in the back. This is the crude timeline that we came up with. And it's going to kind of be my guide, so whatever. Now, you have the original timeline of 1985 with, you know, Marty's dad being all nerdy and all the other crap like that. Mm-hmm. And then you have the original 1955 timeline. Shut up, Pee-wee! The 1955 timeline. So, in the original 1985 timeline, Doc creates the time machine. As you know, in the beginning, Doc gets shot and dies in the hands of the Libyans. and trying to run from the Libyans, Marty jumps in the DeLorean and he jumps to 1955.
Yep.
Now, to me, the dates was important. So October 26, 1985 is when Marty goes to November 5th, 1955. So we already know that was input into the DeLorean. Because Doc was telling him about different dates that he can go through in the time machine. And it was already preset because that's the day that Doc came up with the concept of time travel with the flux capacitor.
Yep.
So Marty goes to 1955, November 5th. When he gets there, Marty does what we call a ripple effect. Marty gets there and just... Oh my God, there's so many timeline skews that he does, but he gets there. So, in a nutshell,
any actions that he takes,
it created a timeline skew.
It's basically not every action he takes creates a timeline skew.
Right.
Basically, he's rewriting
history.
He's rewriting history as he takes his own actions.
Right. So, my notes from Back to the Future 1 is Doc creates the timeline. Creates the time machine in 1985 and Doc dies. Now, when Marty goes back to November 5th, 1955, I believe that the timeline skews, and I'm going to try to put the clip in the corner where I believe the timeline skews.
Right above my face.
Or somewhere in the middle. But the timeline skews to me when Marty pushes his father out of the way from getting hit by Lorraine's father's car. Instead of his dad getting hit by the car, he gets hit by the car. So that changes that whole timeline of, how their parents met, how his parents met, how they fell in love and all the other good stuff like that. So that one little pushing his father out the way is what makes that timeline skews off into a whole nother timeline, because now it's like a domino effect. His mom now has the hots for him. If you've seen the movie, you know how it goes. I'm not going to tell you everything.
And also in that movie, George getting hit by the car was a major event that they hinted at back when Marty was having dinner with his parents.
Exactly.
So, that being a major event, the fact that Marty even completely altered that just also shows that it's going to skew off as well.
Exactly. And so we noticed that after that, he ends up going to go see Doc. After he has dinner with Lorraine's parents, whatever. He goes and he finds Doc. Now, it's still November 5th, 1955. So he goes see Doc. Doc has this crazy thing on his head or whatever. He's telling Doc he's from the future. Doc doesn't believe him. Doc doesn't believe him until Marty gives Doc pertinent information to let him know, hey, I am from the future because I know how you got that bump on your head, because that's how you came up with the idea for the flux capacitor, and that's what made time travel possible and all that stuff like that.
Also, he mentioned that, hey, speaking of which, I have your finished product here.
Exactly. Which is where my theory comes into play, that now that Doc has confirmation that his theory is real and that it's possible, that he had time to perfect. He had 30 years.
Maybe not perfect, but basically he had to make improvements on it, so first it can make a trip through time again. But he also may have made a few maybe corrections.
I believe he made a few tweaks. I don't think,
like I said,
I don't think it's the same DeLorean that was sent there. It's not the same DeLorean anymore. I don't care what anybody says. That's my thing, and I'm sticking to it. So we noticed too that with Marty there, it's little changes that Marty makes that seems like they're subtle, but they're very big changes. With Marty being there and now he's interacting with his parents, he's trying to get his parents to get back together so that they, he can basically exist. So with doing that, at first his dad was real timid. His mom was smoking, drinking, and all this stuff like that. And in the original timeline of 85, before he went back, his mom was an alcoholic. His dad was all goofy and stuff. Biff was just still bullying his dad or whatever like that. So it's when he went back, and it was a lack of confidence, and between his parents, it wasn't really that what would you say, romantic chemistry. It really wasn't like that romantic chemistry.
It wasn't
between
romantic.
them.
It was kind of like, well.
Yeah, it was more complacent to me. It was just like, my dad hit you with the car, so I married you, so whatever.
Now after Marty, his interference.
Right.
Seems like it's a bit more willing between the two of them.
Exactly. And he gives his dad that confidence that he needs. And according to my notes, I was like, what happens is that with him going back and helping his dad win his mom, it changes how, the story of how they met. You notice after his dad stands up for himself with Biff, how he, walking around a little puff chest. Yeah, he holds himself up more.
He's not like fidgeting his hands or anything
he's not,
anymore.
Yeah, exactly. He's not like that anymore. Then we go, so that's kind of to me where the timeline kind of skews is with the whole Marty getting hit. I also feel like it's a very pivotal, yeah, whatever. I feel like that is a real important point or whatever with the conversation between Doc and Marty before they go to the dance, because Doc is telling him like, hey, I have to wait 30 years to talk to you again about the events that happened today. But he's working on the time machine. He's working on the DeLorean. So Doc now has knowledge. Hey, I'm going to make this in 30 years. It's going to be better. Who's to say that he didn't change the blueprint up a little bit, because he had to fix the DeLorean in order to send Marty back to 85. So who's to say he didn't improve on his designs? He didn't make little tweaks and stuff there. So that's where mine come into play. And then we have another important part is that Marty doesn't exactly go back to the exact time that he left. He goes back 10 minutes before Doc left. Before he left. So when we get that's when we now see that when he goes back, it's a whole timeline that is skewed, which is skew number 1.
As he gets back.
Because, yeah, go ahead.
Doc basically has the bulletproof vest because Marty actually left him a letter saying what happened.
Right.
So Doc survives the initial, his initial death in the beginning of the movie. And of course, when you get to, Marty's house, the house is completely different. It's not like, the drab decoration. It's nice and modern looking. Well,
right.
Modern for that time.
His parents are
like happier.
They're happier. They're more in love. They're more affectionate with one another.
His siblings are like kind of a bit more interactive.
They're more, and they're successful too. Like they're not just working at like Burger King or just eating TV dinners in front of the TV and his mom's drinking. Like his mom still looks like she did when he met her, but she's just older. His dad is more confident, and he doesn't let people walk over him. Like he's not, like a butthole or whatever, but he doesn't, let people walk over top of him like he was at first. Biff sees that, George doesn't really take any crap because, he laid him out. So he's like, yeah.
So now Biff is now working, doing his own auto work, but he's working for George right now, actually waxing his car.
Exactly. And he doesn't try to get over. He sees George isn't a pushover anymore. So he takes that over. So that kind of that's the first skewed timeline to me, because now... the first of many. Oh God, Lord. So that goes. So now it's a new 1985 because it's not. They basically rewrote the timeline. The events that he did in 1955 created a whole nother timeline, which is now new 1985. And that's it for Back to the Future 1. Now, if we go to Back to the Future 2, it picks up.
Before we even do that, the end of Back to the Future 1. Doc comes in with that upgraded DeLorean.
He does. He comes in with the updated DeLorean because he tells Marty in Back to the Future 1 that he was going to the future. And Marty says, look me up. So that's kind of a hint that, he's going to the future. So as we know in Back to the Future 2, Doc ends up going to 2015 and he ends up going further.
Right.
So right now we're in the skewed timeline with the events that happened in 1955 leading to the new 1985 with his new parents and everything. From the new 1985, Doc goes to the original timeline from that new 85 to 2015, which leads us to Back to the Future 2. Now, in Back to the Future 2, we know at the beginning, we know that, like he said, Doc comes back with a newer DeLorean. The DeLorean can fly. The DeLorean now runs off of Mr. Fusion. And I definitely had something to say about the plutonium, but I'll try to save that to the end.
We will.
We will definitely get on that about the end as to why I think it was different, but with the plutonium. But like I said, we'll get to that to the end. But now we're Back to the Future 2. Doc skews the original 2015 timeline when he goes back to the new to the new 1985 timeline. And when he does that, two different things happen this time. When he comes back, he gets Marty and Jennifer, because he tells them that something about their kids that they need to do. He takes Marty and Jennifer, but what they don't show in 1 and they show in 2, which is to me that it was kind of like the focal point as to what 2 was going to be about, was...
Biff saw it.
I said beef.
Beef saw it.
Biff saw he saw the DeLorean, because that's exactly what he said. Like, he just seen the DeLorean flying, and then he saw the DeLorean disappearing. He's like, a flying DeLorean? He's like, what the hell is going on here? Flying DeLorean. So, he kind of brushes it off. He's like, whatever. So then we go to October 21st, 2015. Doc goes a little bit further ahead without Jen and Marty, and, he traces it back to October 21st of 2015 as to what needs to be fixed. And we kind of find out that it was something about Marty's kids, getting in trouble and all of it, and his family just kind of going downhill from there. So they have to go back to 2015 to basically stop
Marty's kids from being
stop Marty's
dumb.
kids from making dumb decisions.
Yes.
So we get there, and Marty has to take place for his son or whatever. You see that. So Marty is there, and Doc is telling him, hey, you need to tell Griff, no, you need to stop doing this. Like, you need to do this. We need to get in this time machine, and we need to dip. As we know, that's not how the movie happens. Because this Back to the Future 2, then, yeah. We counted the skews in this movie, and we was like, are you freaking kidding me? So, as we know, Doc knocks Marty's son out. Marty Jr., he knocks him out.
And original Marty takes his place.
Yeah, the original Marty takes his place. He goes to Cafe 80s. He tells Griff no. They do the whole scenario with, flying through. And then, once again, it focuses on old Biff. And old Biff is like, this looks vaguely familiar. And it just shows them on the hoverboards going all around. And, my favorite part, hey, Mcfly, you bonehead, those bullets don't work on water unless you got power. Okay, that was like so sidebar, but it's like my favorite part in there. But anyway, so, he does all of that, and then Griff goes flying through the window. To me, that is the beginning of a time skew. Because they changed the events. Because instead of Marty being arrested for, holding up... Or
Marty Jr.
Marty Jr. being arrested, and then his sister breaking him out and stuff like that. They changed that event, so that never happened. He never meets Griff.
Go to jail. Oh, Griff and his crew.
Yeah, basically that's what they did. Griff and his crew went to jail because Griff and his crew flew through the window, and then that's when Griff did the famous "I was framed." And so that changes. So that skews the timeline from 2015. And instead of going backwards, it just skews a timeline, and it changes events from that day of October 21st, 2015 to beyond. We don't know what else happens after that. It just skews. We're never shown. It just skews off. So that's skew number 2.
However.
Well, is this... what's that skew 2?
That's skew number 2.
Okay, that was skew 2.
And essentially what's going on now is that, at that same point, when Marty's talking to a guy like who's trying to save the clock tower, that clock tower is a constant. We don't know why.
We don't. And it's like in all
it's always stuck
three
on the same
movies.
time, no matter what.
Exactly.
No matter what different actions are taken, it's always there.
And it's always something surrounding the clock tower. And in the first movie, the clock tower, they was trying to save the clock tower.
Mm-hmm.
Then in
the second movie, it was a guy trying to save the clock tower still.
Right.
But then he gives Marty the idea of getting an almanac.
Yes, because Marty sees an advertisement that the Cubs wins the World Series. Did that actually happen too? That in 2015 that the Cubs won the series? Mm-hmm. That was weird. But anyways, it goes to show that they won the series, and then Marty gets this brilliant idea to go to this antique shop and to pick up the almanac. I don't know if he agrees with me, but with me, I feel like that's another important part, and that what skews the timeline again, because that almanac is a very important piece.
It's not an important... Well, it
is an important piece.
It is an important part. However, it's not. It doesn't skew the timeline until Biff actually takes it and goes back.
But it skews the timeline because if Marty would have just did like he was supposed to do and would have just fixed what Doc told him to fix and then got in a time machine and just went back to new 1985, it wouldn't have been a problem. Wouldn't even been a part 2 movie.
Right. And that's the causing action. That's what caused basically Biff to steal it and go back in time.
But
now Biff stealing it and actually going back in time and giving it to himself is what caused another skew.
No. We skipped the whole part.
What whole part?
We skipped the part. Okay. So, right now, we already said that it created a new 2015 that we don't know from 2015 and above.
Right.
Then, so right now, Marty just brought the almanac.
Okay.
Now, old Biff is just walking out of Cafe 80's minding his own business. And he gets bumped by Marty, the original Marty Jr., and then he sees Marty. And he was like, hold on, there's 2 of them? So he noticed that there's 2 Marty Jr.'s. Then he sees the flying DeLorean on the side of Cafe 80's, and he was like, I haven't seen a flying DeLorean in 30 years. And then that's when he gets bumped by the other Marty. And then that's when he keeps looking, and he's like, hold on, like, what's going on? That's when, to me, the timeline skews for a third time. I believe that's when the timeline skews for a third time. Is that whole almanac being bought, that whole scene that happened.
Okay, yeah. That's
when the timeline skews again, because now he said Dr. Emmett Brown invented a time machine. And he saw that, Marty and Doc was having a conversation about, the almanac, and Doc was saying that getting the almanac wasn't right, and that he invented the time machine for not educational purposes, not for financial gain. And then that put the idea in Biff's head, like, hey, he created this time machine, they threw away this almanac, I'm about to get it, and I'm about to take it to my younger self, which is what he did. He followed them.
Exactly what he did.
He followed them when they went to Marty's in a Future's house, and, they went to go get Jennifer, and when I was preoccupied getting Jennifer, old Biff took the almanac back to 1955, the day of the Under the Enchantment Sea dance, and gave it to his younger self.
Yep.
So now that's where the timeline skews. So now that timeline skew caused
85.
when they
55 actually.
No, it caused the new 1985, because they went to 1985 first after they left there.
The dance was in 55.
I know, the dance was in 55. He went back to old Biff went to 55 to give it to young Biff. But that action changed the timeline, which made a new 1985. They didn't know that. So when they went back to new 1985, they realized that Biff was like in charge of the town. George then died and all this other stuff. So the timeline skewed, and that's because Biff skewed that timeline from 2015 when he went back to 55 and gave his younger self the almanac. So all that happened, they end up figuring out, and I will put that clip up here too, where Doc explains the timeline skew about what happens, which is the downfall of us making this long video. But anyways, I'm gonna put that up here. I'm gonna
Did we
put that
talk
clip
about
up
how
here.
Back to the Future 2 ends?
We haven't got there yet.
Okay.
We haven't got there yet. Okay, so we're on timeline 3. Yeah, it just skewed the third time.
Yeah,
okay,
the third time.
So they realized that they need. So Marty goes and talked to Biff. Biff tells him about the almanac, how he got it, the gear and stuff that he got it. They ended up getting in a time machine. Marty tells him, "Hey, we got to go back to 1955." He said, "You're kidding." So they get in the time machine. Bam! They go back to 1955. Now, mind you, this is still the week from Back to the Future 1 that Marty's there trying to correct the ripples that he was already making.
And now he's trying to correct the
So
other
now
ripples.
he's trying to create another ripple that he already made. Mm-hmm. But the events from Back to the Future 1 is still playing in the background. And they're not touching that event. Only thing they're really trying to touch is taking the almanac from Biff so that the timeline will kind of autocorrect itself and go back to new 1985. So, the whole spiel goes, he tries to you see more background of Biff. He's staying in his grandma's house and all this other stuff like that. He goes to the Enchantment Under the Sea dance. You see parts of part 1 still playing out. Past Biff started noticing that there's 2 Martys because he was like, what did he say? He said, "You take my stuff?" And he got hit with the door when Marty was running out to go meet Doc. And then he was like, "It's 2 of them?" And he's like, "You take my stuff?" And then he just bam, just laid off on him.
And then kicked him in the stomach.
Yeah, kicked him in the stomach and got in the car. So that whole tunnel scene with the hoverboard and, him trying to get the almanac back. Okay.
Yeah.
So Marty finally gets the almanac back. He burns the almanac, which restores the timeline that Biff skewed. So it kind of erases that timeline and puts stuff back to new 1985 because you see the newspaper clipping. His dad is not dead. Mm-hmm. Dr. Brown ain't committed. Dr. Brown's not committed. And you see that his dad was awarded an award or whatever for author and stuff like that, and Dr. Brown was awarded too. Now, with the end of Back to the Future 2 is where, to me, timeline 4 gets created. So skew number 4 happens.
Yep.
This is when we was referring to them as original Doc and original Marty.
Right.
But for some reason we was thinking about Rick and Morty, so we kept calling Marty Morty. And it's so many parallels there, but that is a whole another video. But anyways, that's when I get out with you. It's been a long day. It's been so long.
What are you saying, Morty?
It's been so long. God Lord, it's been so long. But this is when Doc... Okay, so at the end, Marty's burning the almanac. And Doc is hovering above in the DeLorean. And the DeLorean keeps flickering, showing... I think it was January or December 1885 no, it was January 1885. And it kept, flickering, and he kept hitting the time circuit so he could go back to 1985.
Right.
And, a piece of lightning struck, and it ended up, the DeLorean disappeared. Marty's looking like, what the heck just happened? Some dude come up and say, "Hey, you Marty, we got this." And he was like, "Oh, the Doc's alive. He's in 1885, but he's alive." And... to me, that's where the timeline skews. Because now, you have the original Marty stuck in 1955. And you have the original Doc transported back to 1885. So now, original 1985 Marty. 1985 Marty has to go meet 1955 Doc because now he's stuck. And then Doc is like, "Hold on, I just sent you back to the future." He said, "I know, but I'm back from the future." He said, "I know you sent me to the future, but I'm back from the future." And then, the Great Scott, and then he passes out and all this other stuff like that. So that's the end of Back to the Future. That's 4 skews so far in 2 movies. 4.
So
now we get to Back to the Future 3.
Now, Back to the Future 3, it starts off in 1955. We already know the original Marty and 1955 Doc are there. And Doc passes out. What we learned is that Doc has been in the past for quite a few months now. How many months?
It was 8 months. Yeah.
So, him even being sent back there, and any actions he's taken in those months is now skewing the timeline leading up to where they're at again.
Skew number 4. So, now we know that original Marty gets original Doc to try to send him, because Doc left him, I can never say the word right.
Morty?
Very clear. No, I was trying to say
specific.
Yeah, what he said. Very clear directions to not to come to 1885, that he was good, everything was Gucci. He was telling him to go to 1985. But, Marty being Marty didn't listen. So we now know that Marty is trying to get Doc from 1955 to send him to 1885. We now know that it's the day after Doc sends him to the future. So it's now November 13th, 1955. Doc and Marty, while he reads the letter, Doc is like, okay, let's go find a DeLorean. They go find a DeLorean. While they're there finding the DeLorean, Doc and Marty actually stumbles upon Doc's grave.
Two things. Doc's grave, and isn't that when they stumbled upon Clint Eastwood's grave as well?
No, they just, because Marty didn't get there yet. They only stumbled across Doc's grave.
Okay, yeah, at that point.
They only stumbled across Doc's grave. So this is where skew number 5 happens. Skew 5 happens because instead of Marty being the good boy that he's supposed to be and carry his hind parts back to 1985 and stop messing with time,
he screams YOLO and goes back to 1885.
He screams forget it, and he scrolls back to 1885, which makes skew number 5. So with skew number 5, Marty goes to 1885, a week prior to Doc's death that we learn about in the letter, thus therefore creating now an alternate 1885, because when in skew 4 it was already an alternate 1885, because that's the timeline that Doc was writing. Mm-hmm. Now it's an alternate 1885 because now Marty has went back and Marty is rewriting over what Doc already wrote.
Right.
So that's skew number 5. So now we get there. Doc refers to the Doc refers to the composition of the DeLorean. Why did I write that?
I don't know. Maybe you're talking about he refers to the basically the current state of the DeLorean.
I don't know where I write that, so scratch that. All right, so that's what happens. He gets there. He tells Doc, "Hey, you got shot in the back over a matter of $80. You have to forgive us. We're tired, and it's been a long day." So, anyways, that's where skew 5 comes. Marty goes back, almost get hanged by Mad Dog Tannen. He finds Doc. He lets Doc know, hey, you're going to be shot in the back, blah, 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 blah. All right, so now we go on to skew 6. With skew 6, Marty and Doc save Clara. If you remember when they was in Doc's home, Doc's barn, or whatever the hell it was. Yeah. They were discussing, the town mayor came in and said, hey, you volunteered to pick up the new school teacher, blah, 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 blah. He was like, her name is Clara Clayton, and that is what was written on Doc's headstone that, in his beloved memory, his beloved wife, Clara. So he's like, come on, love at first sight, come on, bruh, that ain't me. It's all about science, I ain't about that life. So, they go riding, they hear a lady screaming, and they decide to go save her. The woman that they end up saving was Clara Clayton. Now, it's a skew because she was supposed to go over
the edge of the cliff.
Over the edge of the cliff because Marty, later in the scene, which I will post up here in the top, it says, he tells Doc, he was like, hey, like, you know, he was like, yeah, she almost went over into Clayton Ravine. And he was like, Clayton Ravine? He's like, oh, snap. You know, he said, I think she was supposed to go over. It was a story about a teacher 100 years ago falling over there because the kids at school wanted to chuck their teachers over there, or wanted their teachers to fall into the ravine. And then that's when Doc realizes that they now created another ripple, therefore creating another skew in the timeline. He's like, you know, it's been nothing but troubles. We've been doing nothing but messing with history, which they have because we're on skew 6. But that's basically what happened. So then we jump to skew 7. Skew 7 happens when they are at the town picnic, town dance,
town party, picnic,
town party, whatever. It was for the clock tower, when they was starting the clock tower. So we get there, and that is the day that Doc was supposed to die. He was supposed to get shot in the back, because if you remember that scene, I try to place it up here again. If you remember the scene, that's when Doc was dancing and Doc bounced back, and then Buford, well, he said, I told you better watch your back because you weren't going to catch a bullet. Like, basically, he caught Doc slipping. Right. But Marty decided what happened is that Marty stepped in and he saved Doc from getting shot in the back, right? Which created another skew in the timeline, because now instead of Doc dying that day, Marty, you know, trying to save Doc by hitting him with that frisbee tin, you know, that created a whole another event, or a very important event, because now we noticed that the gravestone is still there, but it doesn't have Doc's information on it. It's just blank, which means that the events are still going to plan, right? But it's not Doc that's name is going to end up on a headstone. Then we kind of find out that it's going to be Marty's name that's going to end up on a headstone, because now Marty,
his name was Clint
Eastwood, right? Because now Marty, aka Clint Eastwood, then got into it with Buford Tannen, and Mad Dog ain't having it. Mad Dog was like, yo, you about to catch these hands. I'm about to hand you this L. You about to get this fade. And Marty was like, bro, I ain't even worried, because I'm about to be out. Like, I'm about to be chuck them deuces. I'm about to be gone. Right. So now that's skew 7. Right. Then, you know, the whole thing happens where Doc and Clara, that whole soap opera crap, he tells her about the time machine. They start working on trying to get back and all this other good stuff. So then we end up, you know, him and Buford ends up meeting in the middle of town, like a good old showdown. Hey, bro! Say hey to the say hey to the people.
What's going on?
And so we ended up getting to skew 8.
Good God.
Skew 8 is now, you know, after Marty basically defeats Mad Dog Tannen, you now see that the headstone is gone. Marty doesn't die, so that whole thing is now set right. Right. What happens now is we get to skew 9. Marty and Doc they hijacked the train. They got the DeLorean trying to push it up to 88 miles per hour to get Marty and Doc back to 1985. What happens is, you know, Clara ends up noticing, oh, so the time machine is real. She basically clumps in there, screws everything up, because now Doc is like, oh, my baby, I got to get her. I got to get my boo.
So he rides off into the sunset on a hoverboard.
No, he hovers off into the sunset on a hoverboard with Clara. The train goes over. Marty gets successfully transported back to 1985, but it's askew because now the ravine gets named Eastwood Ravine instead of Clayton Ravine, due to the fact that it's widely believed that Marty's alias, Clint Eastwood, is the one that died in that train going over the ravine. Mm-hmm. Now we got a skew 10. Now, everything is right in 1985. It's the next day. It's October the 27th. Biff is back to being giddy. And, hey, I'm putting the second coat. Like, yes, sir, there, sir. I'm putting that second coat on there for you, sir. And, you know, Marty's parents are still like they originally was. Jennifer is asleep on the porch, all that good stuff. But Marty, once again, always meddling with time, he makes a decision which was alluded to in Back to the Future 2 about Marty hitting the Rolls Royce and him getting fired and not having his music career. He decides not to race needles, and therefore he was like, hey, I would have hit that Rolls Royce.
Right.
Jennifer opens up the paper from the future that she got, and she see that you're fired is erased. Therefore, Marty creates a whole new 2015 from there. Yeah, events
he literally
leading up
needs
to
to stop.
He needs to stop. Because, I mean, God, Lord, we need time. He needs time, Lord. He needs to take a page from the doctor. The doctor doesn't do all this. I mean, this is wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey.
He just needs to take a page from every other human and stop messing with time.
He needs to stop messing with time. He needs to go to jail.
My favorite movie.
Thank you for that unsolicited testimony. So that was Skew.
God, what was that?
What was that, Skew?
Was that 9 or 10?
No, that was Skew 10.
Okay.
And then the final Skew, which is Skew 11. So the final timeline, which kind of sets everything into place, would be the new 1985. Basically, it still has components from the new 1985. The only thing that's different now is that Marty doesn't get into the accident with the Rolls Royce, and that Doc is no longer present in that 1985, but everything else is pretty much still the same. And that's when we see that the DeLorean gets destroyed, which it should have been destroyed because all these freaking timelines and time skips, like, yeah, it should have just been freaking destroyed.
But of course, Doc, being Doc,
comes back
with a train time machine.
That's better.
No, it's not.
It is. It runs off steam.
It's better for the environment.
It's bigger.
But now he's got kids mucking about in different times.
But him and Clara is probably more responsible now. He's married.
You call Doc responsible?
He had to come get Einstein, so we're going to say it's better.
Even married, Doc probably is the most irresponsible. You know what? He creates time machines.
So anyways, that's it for the timelines on that part.
Yep, that's
For
it.
my theory, I just believe that from Back to the Future 1, when the original time machine got sent from Twin Pines Mall to, what was his name? The guy, he was like, my pine, why you? And then he shot him. Old man,
farmer.
The farmer. Old man, something. My pine, why you?
With the worst aim I've ever seen with the rifle.
And, you know, I mean, I just feel like that the DeLorean that came back and broke down on Marty, like, a block away from where he needed to be. I just feel like that is not the same DeLorean. I feel like Doc had 30 years of knowledge knowing that he's eventually going to create the time machine, that he had time to make certain corrections. And this is where my plutonium yes, I definitely made a chart. This is where my plutonium theory comes into place, and I said that it's not the same flipping time machine.
Right, because he goes to 2015 with at the end of movie 1, in the beginning of movie 2, he drives off to the side and says he's going to 2015. Now, at the time, we know that the DeLorean runs partly off of gas and partly off of plutonium. The circuits and the flux capacitor are running off of the plutonium, everything else running off of gas. So essentially, when he drives off screen, we don't know what happens.
Okay, so I'm going to do my theory on that. Okay, I said it's not the same DeLorean because of this. Okay, the OG DeLorean, or the original DeLorean, when Doc sent Einstein a minute into the future, he put in one thing of plutonium. So I drew, and yes, y'all can excuse my handwriting. So I drew.
I won't.
Shut up. So I drew this diagram. This is the plutonium. All right. So the one that's the line through, that's the one that he used to send Einstein a minute into the future.
By the way, that's the case of plutonium.
That's the case of plutonium that he stole from the Libyans.
It actually shows it in the movie.
Yes,
when he opens it up. It has different vials in it.
And it has different vials in it. Now, this is the one that he used to send Einstein a minute into the future. This one is the one that he used to send Marty to 1955. Now, They said this is what they used. Now, to send Marty back from the original 1955 to
the new 1985.
the new 1985, they used lightning, which is what generated the 1.21. 1.21. that was my thing. He said, "Jigga what? Jigga who?" He was like 1.21. Okay, I'm gonna have to link that in the description. If y'all have not watched Robot Chicken, that was in there, and they did a parody of Jigga what.
Good gosh.
Oh God,
It's an old episode,
and we're such nerds, but it's okay. So, anyways, to go back to the new 1985, they used lightning to transport Marty back. In the new 1985, there's a scene where Doc is telling Marty that, you know, he has Einstein in the car. He's telling Marty, hey, I'm about to go to the future. Marty's like, hey, look me up, blah, 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 blah. You do not see him with any plutonium, because anytime you see him dealing with plutonium, you see Doc in a radiation suit. You do not see Doc in a radiation suit in this scene. Doc is strictly in a car looking like he's about to pull off and he about to go do what he and go, you know what I'm saying? Like he about to pull off and he about to go do what he need to do. So,
and we also, I mean, the sky is clear in that scene, so there's no lightning. So.
Exactly. The sky is clear. There's no lightning. You hear no talks and him saying he still got the plutonium, nothing. So, I take it that he didn't use the plutonium because he ended up doing a little bit of tweaks to the DeLorean, knowing that the Libyans was going to come shoot him because he stole the plutonium.
Well, they shot him.
Yeah, he originally, but that was the Shiitake, whatever. Anyways, I don't believe he used plutonium. I think that was the events that just happened to play out.
Basically, the DeLorean was modified to the point where he couldn't change it back to use plutonium, so he had to find another way to 2015.
So when he went to 2015, he took it to 2015, and that's when he got Mr. Fusion, which it feeds off trash, garbage, or whatever like that. Refuge in order to power the
circuits and flux
the
capacitor.
circuits and the flux capacitor. And that's what got him to the new 1985, where Back to the Future picks up at, because he hits that trash can and he gets that beer and throws it in there.
Beer, banana peels.
The beer and the banana peels. So that is our notes. Yes, we took notes.
We did.
We drew out timelines. We watched all 3 freaking movies.
It was fun.
We paused them. And
discussed, took breaks,
we did everything. So I would like to hear what you guys think about our whole timelines for Back to the Future.
Seriously,
what you feel like about the DeLorean. Do you feel like that with Doc having knowledge of him building the DeLorean and him knowing that, hey, my theory for the flux capacitor work, and he had 30 years to perfect on a blueprint, do you feel like that he did that? And I feel like he did. I feel like that the DeLorean that came back, that sent Marty back, and that was used for time travel there on out, was not the same or original DeLorean that sent him to 1955. That's just me.
I mean, if you have any ideas on, you know, the whole time skewing off into alternate timelines or anything, definitely put that in the comments. You know,
yes,
we want to hear that.
We would love to hear that. I definitely do have a Facebook page. I'm so high right now. But I created a Facebook page where you can post fanfics. You can post topics that you would like for me to discuss. If you would like to try to do a guest appearance, we can try to work that out. I do Skype as well. It is Penny's Fantopia. If you just type in PENNY 'S and then Fantopia FANTOPIA. Myself and Will are the page's admin, so we are definitely open to any suggestions. We are open to picks, topics. You're more than welcome to carry on discussions on the board. I'm just trying to get the page to get more likes. You can
honestly anything, not just about Back to the Future, anything.
Yeah, anything. Fandoms. I'm about to say any fandom. It has a fandom. We're pretty much knowledgeable in that fandom.
Yeah.
Have no life. I mean, only thing I do is watch TV. I mean, I am in the fandom from the Golden Girls.
I'm in a fandom for the Blade movies, but we're not gonna go into that right now. Not at all.
And I hate to admit it, but I am in a fandom for the Twilight movies.
Somewhat respectable.
Somewhat. But yes, we will, on that page, I would try to post like geek news and like things. I did post a reaction video. This video probably won't go up until next week. I mean, this video needs a lot of editing. This video was so long. I am so sorry for the longness, but it was a video that you guys asked for. So it is a video that I decided to create. So once again, thank you for joining us in our discussion. I am Penny.
I'm Will.
And we will see you guys later. Bye.